What up, though? So, I've been kind of laying back. I've been kind of teasing y'all with some of the thoughts and ideas in my head when it comes to talking real talk. But today we're gonna transition. We're gonna take it to the next level. And if you know me from my Facebook account, we've gone to these levels before, but we're gonna go a whole lot deeper because there's a lot of things that I just don't say on Facebook because I'm checking in on Facebook with my phone, and I don't feel like doing all that texting because, again, I'm a man of a certain age. So today we're going to talk about racism and hatred and the things that are dividing this country and bringing us down. So today's real talk is racism and hatred. So, as a sailor in the United States Navy, I've been around the world. I've been to a lot of places and I've seen a lot of different people. If you've never left America, you've never been to a place where everybody is the same race. In America, there's multiple races, right? So get put in these groups. But when you go overseas, everybody is indigenous to that country. They're all the same people. Historically, if you look at the world, revolution is always started when poor people get to a point where they just can't take being poor anymore. And so they raise hell and they rise up and they take down the wealthy. Because it's always way more poor people than wealthy people. So from the perspective of the wealthy, in order to ensure your position in the food chain, you have to keep the poor people blinded and not paying attention to you and how you're getting over on them. And today we're going to talk about some of those things that people use to keep us divided and not paying attention. They're tools. The first thing I want to explain is if I can use your identity to get you to place yourself in a group that is opposite to some other group, and at the same time convince you that your group is right and their group is wrong, that just works. Once I teach you that, it'll recycle itself over and over and over for generations if it's done well. Right. So let's ignore all the demographics of the world and say what people believe is my group is better than your group. That's what we're taught. My group is better than your group. And we keep reemphasizing that with my group is better than your group. And I think some of the violence we've seen in the last few years is when the ability to clearly state that my group is better than your group falls apart, frustration, rage, anger all come out of that, and you get, things like January 6th and mass shootings, things like that. So let's start with a really simple example I like to use when I discuss this topic. Many of us in America have been divided in these subgroups, and it's all just a fallacy. It's fake. It's not real. We look at this country as rich and poor, and a lot of people who are like middle class will look at poor people and look down on poor people, not realizing that when you compare our incomes to the truly wealthy, we are all in the same group. So let's create a story out of an example and how that tool is created to work against you. So let's say that I am an owner of a factory. And in my factory, we make widgets. And I'm going to hire you to be the supervisor. of the widget floor, the factory floor. You're going to be in charge of the factory floor, right? Because you've got a little education, you've got a little skill, right? The difference between you and a guy who actually operates the machine that makes widgets is he's just got skill. You have gone somewhere and you have a piece of paper with a lot of Latin words on it that say you're a little bit smarter. But you probably worked for a while as the guy who's got skill as well. That's a combination of the two things I'm going to look for you, but not a whole lot. I don't need a whole lot of your skill. So when I hire you, I explain to you that in our factory, we typically make, let's say, 650 widgets a month. But because you're special, I think you can get us up to 1,000 widgets a month. And since our normal amount of widgets is only 750, if you get us to 1,000, I will double your salary for that month. Sounds like a deal. Because everybody thinks they're smart and that they can figure out a way to improve productivity amongst, anyone else. And so you take this deal. You go all in. And you get down there and you start supervising the people who run the widget machines. And that first month, man, you are on it. And that first month, you make about 700, maybe 75 widgets. You're going to start to become a little frustrated. You're going to start trying to figure out, okay, how can I streamline this process? How can I improve productivity amongst my widget machine operators so I can get to that 1,000 widgets quota? And you're going to pour your heart and soul into it. You're going to look for ways to make it more efficient, ways to move the conveyor belts or whatever we're moving widgets on a little bit faster. That second month, when you only make about 780 widgets, you're going to be frustrated because you've done everything you can to streamline the process. Somewhere between that second month and that third month, you're going to start blaming the widget machine operators. You're like, these people are lazy. They're not working hard enough. But here's a secret that you never knew in the first place. I'm the owner of the factory. I built a factory knowing that my maximum output of widgets was probably only 800 widgets a month. I knew this. I don't have enough machines and materials to actually get to 1,000. But because you don't know that, you don't look at me as the one who scams you. You look at the people who work for you. You look down on them, right? And every month you don't get that bonus, you get more and more angry at them. And if I really want to push that narrative deeper into your brain, whenever I interact with you as the factory owner, I'll say just enough negative stuff about the factory workers to really reinforce your hatred of them. Now, through this process, I've somehow taught you that you are way better than the guy who runs the widget machine. You think that you make a lot more money than the widget machine operator. You do, but not as much as you think. If you went home with the widget machine operator, he's probably got a 2-bedroom house. You have a 3-bedroom house. You probably live within about 2 or 3 miles of each other. You see, the psychology of what I've done to you is I've convinced you that you are better than him and that you're different from him and that you have the opportunity of upward mobility, whereas he does not because he is not educated and he is not as good as you. But in reality, when you take the salaries of all the widget machine operators and all of the widget machine factory floor supervisors and combine them, none of you make a third as much as me. If you came to my house as the widget factory owner, you would see that my front lawn is big enough to put both of your neighborhoods in. But you will never at any point look at me as your enemy because I am the one who gave you the opportunity for upward mobility and to double your salary. Although you never knew it was just a trick to convince you to get down there and work really hard. And maybe, my 800 widget factory could actually make 800 widgets, right? That's the trick. That's how the trick is played. I convince you to fight amongst yourselves while you ignore me, right? Who's really the true enemy, the one that's exploiting all of you. You are mad at the factory worker, thinking that he's lazy, shiftless, and not driven. I'm looking at you as the fool that I convinced to drive him, and you're looking at me as the savior. So now let's move beyond the widget factory and into the real world. Having been all over the world, like I said before, I've seen this weird balance between the rich and the poor. And being a minor lover of history, when you look around the world and you look at revolutions, revolution typically tends to happen when the poor get to a point where they just can't take it anymore. And they overthrow the rich. Right? And you get these weird political structures after it, right? Like communism, socialism, right? We're going to share amongst each other because the rich were taking everything from us, right? That's really what those kind of ideologies do. The only revolution I can really think of, and I could be completely wrong about this, right, was the American Revolution. That was a situation where it wasn't the poor overthrowing the rich. It was the rich convincing the poor that they should go to war against the wealthy. For the longest time, I have believed that the founding fathers of this country were basically second sons of European, nobles. Right? When I say second sons, right, if you're a noble, your firstborn son gets all the land and all the riches. Your second born son doesn't get squat. So now you got this new land, America. Second born son can take just a little bit of cash and his name and go over there and make a name for himself. At some point, the second born sons were like, we're still being treated like second born sons and we deserve our respect. We don't need to be paying all this homage back to, you know, our brothers. So we need to fight this. But it's not enough of them, so you got to convince the poor people to go to war for you. I would question how much life improved for any person who was not wealthy or rich in America after the Revolutionary War for a couple of years. If you know, tap it in the comments and, let me know. I could be off. Okay. So, understanding that revolution is typically caused by poor people becoming so poor that they don't care anymore and they're willing to die to get out of that situation, how do you prevent them from rising up against you? How do you prevent them from unifying against you? In other countries where everyone is of the same racial demographic, I noticed they use things like religion. You're a Sunni, I'm a Shiite. We don't get along. We're different groups. My group's better than your group. We're going to scrap it out. Right? When everybody looks the same, you got to figure out something like a belief or some other system where you can go, you're different from my group is right. I'm going to annihilate you. I'm going to get rid of you um, because I don't trust you. Right? And as long as I can stay on top manipulating that, then none of the poor and unfortunate can ever look up and see me doing it. They're too busy fighting amongst each other. Now, in a lot of countries, this is a well thought out plan. But in America, we have perfected it because this is what we managed to do in America. We have subdivided ourselves into so many groups that we're even confused about what groups are really our enemies. What groups are we really trying to say, my group is better than your group? Right? Think about it. Let's try another example. The average American prison has way more criminals in the prison than it does prison guards. I would venture to say you probably have more like people doing life in prison than a lot of prison guards in prisons. So with those numbers, statistically, a prison should be impossible. But if you subdivide those numbers, break them down into smaller parts, isolate them from each other, then you can control them. Right? You can control them. If you've only got 50 prison guards and you can convince people to break themselves down into a group of 10, then it's easy to control those 10. When in reality, those 10 have something in common, right? And should actually be fighting against you with all of the other prisoners because we're in jail we don't want to be. Everyone in prison doesn't want to be in jail. If you go to that common denominator versus prison guards, you would not be able to maintain a prison. So in America, the tool we first started using was racism. We got people to ignore poverty for racism. I'll submit to you, poverty in America may have different faces, but poverty is poverty. Not having is not having. The hood is no different than the trailer park. They may look different, but at the end of the day, there is no more money in the hood than there is in the trailer park. In the trailer park, you may feel superior because you have your own box. But that box in a strong wind is gone. In the hood, we just built prison like structures to put people in and teach them how to house themselves like prisoners. But neither one is growing. There's no investment in either one. There's very little potential for upward mobility in either one. But the reason why the hood and the trailer park don't unite is because we've been convinced that they were natural enemies. And the beautiful part about racism is it's one of those things where I can teach it and you will perpetuate it for me. You will perpetuate it so well that you will start to hate your own race. That's a smooth trick right there. You can really convince people of their individual group dynamic superiority to rally against the most major group that they belong to. It's an amazing concept when you think about it, right? And we can look at how this thing kind of developed over just my lifetime. So when I was born in this country in the 1970s, I kind of basically belonged to two groups, right? I was black and I was a male. That's it. I was black and I was a male. Over the course of my 46 years, They've developed so many groups to put me in that I that as a human being I have to figure out what group I'm in and what I'm gonna support the most. What am I gonna become fanatical enough about that I lose my sight on the fact that I was born in a system that does not share the wealth, and a system that is designed to redistribute wealth, redistribute wealth uh, from the poor to the rich. Right. So now, over the course of my life at 46, instead of just being a black male, now I'm African American or black male. I am heterosexual or black male. I am Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, ultra conservative, ultra liberal, right? You keep adding more of these tags and titles to me. And every time someone gives you a tag or a title, that puts you in another group. And now you have to align with that group and be ready to fight the other groups so you can say that my group is better than your group. But at the end of the day, the groups don't matter because the people at the top don't really belong to a group. The group they belong to is the wealthy. And as long as they can keep you fighting amongst yourselves, you're never going to stop and look and go, wait a minute. Rich people or wealthy people don't become wealthy by making money. I love that term. They made money, they earned their money. No, what they did was they came up with a plan to convince poor people to give them money. That's how you become wealthy, right? You convince enough people to give you money and you move up. And that's celebrated as long as you take it from poor people. If you convince rich people to give you money and you move up and they feel like they've been slighted, man, you are going to jail, right? You got these people who were check cashing place kingpins who become millionaires. It's all right. Bernie Madoff, though, man, he hustled some rich people. That dude got life. They sentenced Bernie Madoff like he was selling crack. So I just want you to think about that. Think about the things that have been designed to divide us. And what we're quickly coming to is there are so many things dividing us and so much rage that we don't even know why we're in a rage. And people are reacting to that. I swear every time I turn on the television, there's another mass shooting. And when I look at the people involved, I go, you all have so much in common. Why are you shooting each other? Because you have been dissected and divided into so many groups, that you've aligned yourself so hard with all of these divisions that you can't find a way out anymore. That has become your your personality. It defines your character. That doesn't define your character. Who you are defines your character. But because someone told you were in this group, you've embraced that. And that's what it wasn't even a group that you were born in. You've just embraced some ridiculous ideology telling you to be in this group and that all the other groups are bad. And the panic of my group is failing, my group is losing, you lash out. And that's part of the trick. Convince you that your group is failing and you need to lash out. And the people whipping you into a frenzy, feeding you all of this ideology, they're never the people standing at the podium at the rally. They're the people you've never heard of. They're the names you wouldn't recognize. The people you've heard of, that's at that level, that's like middle management. That's like the foreman, at the widget factory. And they've convinced the foreman to hate the worker. And that's really what it is. Another quick thing I want to add at the end of this is the beauty of the weak convincing the strong that they should fight to defend the weak. When you talk majority and minority in this country, you think black and white, right? Or whatever other racial dynamic. But when you really stop to think, majority and minority in this country is rich and poor, right? So in reality, the minority is convincing the majority to fight and die for them. And I think back to probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I laughed so hard I almost pissed myself when I was looking at on January 6th, the rally that was going on. And Rudy Giuliani said, "It must be war by combat." And I just fell out laughing like, whose ass are you going to kick? You are not going down in a fight for anybody. But you convince these people out here that they need to go and fight for something. Your ass is not fighting, right? You are not about doing anything. You're about to go upstairs and change your depends, right? To put some more of that shiny black hair dye in your hair. But that's all I wanted to put out today. I just kind of had these thoughts, and I've been watching the news, and I've just been seeing way too many mass shootings, and I'm trying to figure out where these people's minds are. And we'll say it's mental health. It's a mental health issue. Um, but I think some of these mental health issues are brought on by the constant feeding of lies and a constant division of people, and constantly being told that your group is better than their group, and not even understanding what group you're in, but being told what group you're in, and that's frustrating and confusing. And I think that the human mind just kind of is going to shatter. And here's the most dangerous part of this. And I want you all to think about this. Most of us are upstanding citizens. We wouldn't break the law. But how low would your life have to be for you to change that thought? How much would you have to lose? How loud must the cries of your children be for hunger before you start thinking, I'm going to break the law? So I think every man has a breaking point. Every man, every woman has a breaking point before they're willing to go, I just can't take it anymore. And I think one of the favorite examples of that is the Joker from Batman. Basically says all it takes is one bad day. Be honest with yourself. Find out where that one bad day is. Where's that level where you just go, I don't care anymore. I'm willing to die to take care of me and my family. Because everyone's got that point out. Don't take the moral high ground and say you don't. Everyone has that point. Right? If you love your family, you have that point. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this like I always do. I'm just saying, fuck out of here. Holla at your boy.